And I think, fellas, we get the sense that, okay, the big guys are in, record-breaking deals have been made, but actually take a look at the list, and I think this will illuminate it for everyone. When you take a look, this was Mark Feinsand of MLB.com, his top 10 that he put together in November. And actually, with Ohtani and Yamamoto going off the board, you think, all right, the big names are out. Actually, 6, Jim, of the top 10 are still out there to be signed. Real talent. Snell, Bellinger, Hader, Jordan Montgomery, J.D. Martinez, and Matt Chapman. There's a lot of talent, a lot of business to be done.
There certainly is. And you know what? For me, when I look at this list, I think of impact, elite, and guys that can help clubs instantly. If those guys get signed, which they will, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch where they go.
Yeah, what's curious about that, 4 of those 6 guys, they have a few things in common, or one thing in common. They all are represented by Scott Boras, and we know he likes to take his time. So we're going to see him continue to kind of figure out that market, what his guys deserve. And, you know, what's been kind of curious, only 3 position players have signed 3 years or more. So I'm kind of curious to see what the market might be for these guys remaining.
I think part of the holdup, too, you're right, it is also representation, but it's also, I think, the market trying to figure out what to pay these guys. Because most of these guys, Snell, Bellinger, and Hader, mostly, are high ceiling, low floor. They've all had outstanding seasons where you're talking best player in the National League, best pitcher in the National League last year, #1 relief pitcher in the game. They've also had a trough that was hard to deal with. So when you're trying to figure out, hey, at your best, you're $40 million a year, but at your worst, like we don't have you on the roster, what do you do with that?
Yeah, I think, too, you have to take free agents for what it's worth. And I think right now, a lot of people might say that other than Ohtani, Yamamoto, it was somewhat of a weaker free agency, and I think that's why we're seeing a little bit of a difficulty. These guys coming off the board is exactly because of what you said, because when they're good, they're outstanding, but when they're bad, it's been kind of rough to watch at times. But I think you have to take a flyer and have to give these guys what they earned. Last year they went out, they bounced back. Cody Bellinger did what he's supposed to do. Blake Snell, Cy Young in both leagues. So this guy has a track record of winning. He knows how to pitch out of trouble. So when you talk about these guys, you know, what they can do, what they can bring to the table, I think you have to look at the ceiling more than the floor right now, and I think the floor's kind of holding some things up.
Look, Cameron, I'm with you. His last season was outstanding, and I'm not even going into he pitches 5 or 6 innings. That's all anybody does now.
That's the game.
He gives a full game effort, and he usually leaves Jimmy with 6 innings, 1 run allowed. But there it is. Those 4 years in between, 2020, that's a short season, fine. But we're talking full years, 107 innings, 128 and 2/3, 128. So he's not even giving you the volume, and he's about league average, but that's bookend by years that are just so outstanding. And I mentioned this yesterday. I'm doing my top 10 pitchers right now. See, you only do outfielders, so you'll have a lot to worry about. I got to do every position. Blake Snell is solidly in the top 10. There's not as much starting pitcher talent that is giving you innings anymore. So to me, I'm looking at the crowdsourcing for Blake Snell, and crowdsourcing on Fangraphs says 5 for 125. I'd have to say I'm in on that.
Absolutely.
There's not that much pitching out there. Blake Snell's very attractive.
So the reward is so high with this guy, and you know this. When we sit around and scout guys and watch video of them and film, this guy's stuff is electric. The second half of the season, we touched on this yesterday. When you watch a guy and it's dominant, this guy was hitting 97, 98. And if he can produce the innings, boy, the ceiling you're getting is so high, an impact guy to any club.
And I'll add to it, I've been in the box against Blake Snell. And as a right-handed hitter, one thing that never really bothered me was left-handed pitchers. I remember the first time facing him going, man, that fastball's on me. That breaking ball is sharp and nasty. His stuff is absolutely electric, and he's the type of guy that can absolutely neutralize a dominant lineup. So when you talk about what he can do, and the biggest thing for Blake Snell is if he can get more efficient in the zone early in the counts, I think he still can tick up, is what's crazy. We talk about a guy that's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. I still think he can get better, and I think he's hungry, and I think he hears all the talk about how he struggles and how he throws a lot of pitches. Well, one thing he does as good as anybody, he can pitch out of trouble as good as anybody in this game.
No question.
And you have to value that as well.
I don't think that's flukish either. I agree with you.
Absolutely.
His stuff wipes out. His velo has been steady for 6 or 7 years. The other guy that's I call them mercurial player is Cody Bellinger. I'll give you crowdsourcing on this. This is, again, Fangraphs who throw that in. And look, here's like the years that he's had. We're talking an OPS plus in 2022 of 81. When it jumps up to 133, slugging 525. Those are real numbers. And Jimmy, we know he can field and he can run. He can play center, he can play first. He's very good. He's got a good attitude. It's all there. But he hit a trough for 2-3 years that was just hard to fathom. All right, crowdsourcing, the fans are saying 6 years, 144. I don't think that's what his agent is thinking. We're hearing well north of that. Because again, 6 at 144, I'm thinking, all right.
Cubs, where you at? Bring it back.
I'm talking to you. What would you pay? Like, what are we talking? $20 million a year, 25, 30? Are we talking, are you comfortable with more than 5? Talk deal. What are we talking?
Well, I think that's when you start to have to understand who's representing these guys. Scott Boras is a guy, he's going to try to get his clients the most possible. And when you look at what Cody Bellinger has done, and I know he had those 3 down seasons, but I think 2 of them he was hurt, dealing with a labrum. I've done that before. Jim knows. Anytime you have shoulders messing with you, it affects your swing. We saw a healthy Cody Bellinger. If he's healthy, he looks like the guy that we saw early in those Dodgers years that can lift the team. And like you said, at any moment, he's the best player on the field, first base, center. You can plug him any spot, and he can bring so much. I think you're getting a healthy Cody Bellinger. To add to your point, I think you're looking closer to the $200 million mark, and I think that's what he's looking to get.
Oof. That's what besides the injury, he produced on the field big time. And for me, the risk is, 175, I think 200 is in the range. For a guy that potentially is an MVP.
Absolutely.
With a guy that came out and did what he did last year.
Okay, I'm torn on it too, because the more every time you add a year over 4, I'm getting nervous. I'd feel much better if he did another year like he had with the Cubs. If he backed it up with another year, I'd feel so much better.
And that goes back to my point. You see these guys, Jamie Candelario, Lourdes Gurriel. It's only a few guys getting more than 3+ years, so it makes me want same type of ideas. Okay, do you just kind of run it back to what you did last year, go with a higher AAV, and then that way you're a little bit satisfied, and then go prove it again, and then maybe there's an opt-out. Who knows how you can structure that contract to make it, team friendly and player friendly.
Well, and it all depends too where he wants to go and win. You want to go, when you're this type of player, you want to go win somewhere. And I'm sure that's what they're thinking about.
Okay, what do you pay Josh Hader? If Edwin Diaz got 5 years at 20, right, 20 per, what do you pay Josh Hader?
Before the injury, the fluke injury of Edwin Diaz, I think he was more durable. One thing he's already showed you that he's willing to go 1 or 2 innings. One thing that Josh Hader tried to stay away from. Now, I don't know if in this conversation you're going, hey, if we sign you to this long-term deal, we don't want to hear any more of that. I'm only going out there for 1 inning or to go get a couple batters. So I think that's where you're really trying to figure out, what is he going to get. Now, if you're going to tell me he's going to go out and give me those Eddie Diaz innings and he's going to be able to go out and get a 6-out save, then all of a sudden, I wouldn't say Eddie Diaz money, but slightly below that for sure, I think would be very, reasonable for Josh Hader.
His Ks per 9, by the way, have slipped down, but he's slipping down from the mountaintop, all right? So it was at stratospheric historical highs. It is slipping a bit. But, I mean, realistically, even at 53 innings, Jim, I think that's what he had last year, he's got a 1.28 ERA. Like, let's be realistic. He's dominating.
He's swing and miss. He's dominant. He's... when he's on the field, he is an animal, man. This guy, he's not somebody I want to face. I know that.
Again, another lefty that I was shying away from as well.
Yes. I think if you go full freight, you have to have a lot of conversations with him, but say, we want the guy that was pitching 80 innings a season for Milwaukee. And now we're not abusing you. Now we're backing up the truck. You're getting the cash. So now it's in your best interest.
Now you can look at Eddie Diaz money. Absolutely.
Right.